I wasn't a fake heiress, nor was I the real one. My adoptive parents' biological daughter, who had been kidnapped 17 years ago, had returned home. My adoptive mother held her tight, endlessly murmuring, "My darling, my precious." But Chloe just stared at me, feigning innocence. Now that I'm back, shouldn't asterisk that older sister go back to asterisk her own home? She believed I was an adopted child who had usurped the comfortable life that rightfully belonged to her. However, she didn't realize that the moment she uttered those words, the entire family fell silent. Chloe was supposed to be my adoptive parents' biological daughter. She had been kidnapped as a child and sold to a remote mountain village. Today, she was finally found. I was just returning home from playing baseball when I heard heart-wrenching sobs echoing from inside the house as I reached the door. Stepping in, I saw my adoptive mother hugging a girl, weeping uncontrollably. My adoptive father stood beside them, his 1.8-meter frame trembling, eyes red-rimmed. My adoptive mother's voice was hoarse. "Mommy finally waited for you, my child. You don't know how much I regretted leaving you alone with that nanny." At that moment, I immediately realized who the girl was. My adoptive parents had a biological daughter. Back then, they were just starting their business, didn't have much time to care for her, so they hired a nanny. They left early and returned late every day, unaware that the nanny was a human trafficker. Then, when she was just 4 years old, the nanny sold her. Although the family searched for many years, they could never find her. "Who is this?" A weak voice pulled me from my thoughts. I looked up to see her staring at me. I unconsciously frowned, her gaze made me uneasy. Yet she reacted strongly, shrinking back and clinging to my adoptive mother. My adoptive mother patted her back reassuringly, smiling, "Don't be scared, this is your older sister." My adoptive mother then introduced me to her. "Hannah, this is your younger sister, Chloe." But Chloe mumbled, "But I don't remember having an older sister." She hesitated for a few seconds, then glanced at me timidly. My adoptive mother started, "Hannah is," I smiled, finishing her sentence, "adopted." "Oh, so that's it." Her voice softened, muttering spiritlessly, "My parents already have another child now." My adoptive mother quickly hugged her, saying with a pained voice, "Chloe, having an older sister isn't a bad thing. Our home will have one more person to love you." Chloe looked at me with a sullen expression, tears welling up in her eyes. I thought Mom and Dad only loved me. Why do I have to share that love with her? At this point, I clearly felt that my discomfort wasn't an illusion. She harbored hostility towards me. However, I could also understand her feelings, having suffered so much outside. To return and see her biological parents caring for another child, I was about to explain, "Chloe, actually I am?" But she cried even louder. "Should I not have come back? Will my return affect your 3-person family life?" My adoptive father immediately became anxious. "Chloe, what nonsense are you talking about? Your adoptive mother and I have longed for you for so many years. Now that you're back, we're overjoyed. What parents would want their child to suffer outside?" Chloe looked at my adoptive father, helpless. "Really? Of course." Receiving the affirmative answer, she stopped crying and smiled, hugging Dad tightly, resting her head on his shoulder petulantly. "Thank you, Dad." My adoptive parents breathed a sigh of relief. The next second, she suddenly proposed, "Now that I'm back, shouldn't asterisk that older sister go back to asterisk her own home?" The atmosphere grew still. Only the soft breathing of everyone remained. She looked at my adoptive mother with an expectant gaze. My adoptive mother unconsciously avoided her eyes. My adoptive father pretended to drink tea to avoid her gaze. Finally, Chloe realized something was amiss. Her face turned flustered. "Dad, did I say something wrong?" But I caught a glimpse of dissatisfaction in her eyes. I was slightly startled. My adoptive father cleared his throat lightly. "Our family has 2 daughters, it makes a father proud. Let's just keep it that way." My adoptive mother chimed in, Yes, you've just returned. If there's anything you don't understand, Hannah can help you." Chloe seemed not to expect her request to be rejected so decisively. She unconsciously looked towards me. I curled my lips into a smile at her. "Okay." Holding my baseball bat, I turned and walked out the door. Behind me, my adoptive mother's panicked voice rang out, "Hannah, Hannah, Hannah." I walked straight to the neighbor's house next door, used my fingerprint to unlock the door, and went straight in. This family, ostensibly my maternal aunt and uncle, were actually my birth parents. That's right, I had been adopted by my asterisk current parents, the ones I had just left. So when Chloe showed hostility towards me, even though I understood, I didn't feel I owed her anything. You see, at that time, my adoptive mother's own daughter had been kidnapped. In her desperate grief, my adoptive mother knelt before my birth mother, Aunt Sarah, begging to adopt me. Aunt Sarah initially refused because she had already given birth to 3 sons and finally had a daughter like me. How could she easily give me away to someone else? But because my adoptive mother and adoptive father were willing to buy a house near my birth family, and they were practically insane with grief from searching for their daughter, looking so thin they barely seemed human, Aunt Sarah's heart softened, and she agreed. My name is Hannah Shen, taking my birth mother's surname, Shen, and the Sue in the middle from my birth father's surname. This was Aunt Sarah's only condition when she allowed my adoptive mother to adopt me. So, outsiders who didn't know the truth spread rumors that my adoptive parents were so deeply in love that their only daughter took her mother's surname. Even Chloe thought I was living a privileged life, enjoying the pampering and favoritism that rightfully belonged to her. But I deserved countless affections. Honestly, if I had been raised by my birth parents, I would be infinitely happier than I am now. After all, I have a pair of open-minded and loving birth parents, an eldest brother who is a ruthless CEO, a second brother who is a gentle-as-jade hospital director, and a third brother who is an arbitrary and showy film director. I have many strong pillars of support. Remembering the dissatisfaction and resentment in Chloe's eyes towards me, I subtly curled my lips. The days ahead probably wouldn't be peaceful. This newly returned cousin was a true white lotus. From the moment I could remember, my birth parents and brothers had always cared for me. Even when my adoptive mother and father were busy with work, they still looked after me meticulously. They had told me more than once that even though I was adopted by my adoptive mother, their home was always open for me to return anytime. So, they had even specially prepared a room for me, complete with a study and a piano room. That's why I felt completely at home when I entered their house. Stretching out on the sofa, comfortably eating fruit that my birth aunt had already cut. Outside, hurried footsteps sounded. My adoptive parents rushed in. "Hannah, Hannah, Hannah, what's wrong, darling?" After my adoptive mother saw me, she sighed in relief, hastily lifting my face. "My precious Hannah has been wronged. Chloe has just returned, so she's a bit sensitive. Don't be angry," I retorted. "So I deserve to be treated coldly like that?" My adoptive father flinched. "What are you saying?" "Your adoptive mother and I watched you grow from a baby into a young woman. You are our daughter, who dares to treat you coldly?" My adoptive mother also said. "Hannah, for you to say that truly breaks my heart." "All right, but I don't want to go back and hear her unpleasant words. I'll stay here for a few days." My adoptive parents said in unison. "No, come back home with us. We won't feel at ease with you here." The two of them, one on each side, one holding my shoulder, one holding my waist, led me back to the house next door. They were afraid I would stay at my birth parents' house and never return. It seemed their thoughts hadn't been completely swayed by Chloe yet. I lowered my gaze. In truth, my decisive departure was a test for them. I wanted to see if they no longer wanted me, now that their biological daughter had returned. But now it seemed I had worried too much, and some people had overthought things. My gaze inadvertently swept past a second-floor window. I spotted a figure standing behind the curtain. I smiled. "Chloe, I win this round." In truth, I harbored no ill will towards Chloe. After all, she was my adoptive parents' biological daughter, and even my actual cousin. While I might be a little arrogant, I've always been fiercely protective of my family. So, when I first met her, I felt a pang of pity. It was a shame that as soon as she arrived home, Chloe wanted to drive me away, which instantly disappointed me. If she didn't want this older sister, I certainly wouldn't waste my time trying to befriend her. After returning home, Chloe stopped openly provoking me, but she still secretly made many small moves behind my back. She intentionally acted intimately with my adoptive mother in front of me, showing friendliness to the house staff with a genial expression. She tried to demonstrate her harmlessness and gentleness in various ways, emphasizing the difference between her and me. But I just observed coldly, taking no action. Only those who lacked love from an early age value affections so much. People like me, who have received abundant love since childhood, would never pay attention to such fragile sentiments, nor do we need to actively beg for love. Because even without trying, I know I am loved. Therefore, I couldn't be bothered to quibble with her over her petty actions. Her tricks were truly too clumsy. Although I didn't want to quibble with her, having someone constantly hovering around was truly annoying. I called my eldest brother directly. The gist was just 4 words: send money for spending. Immediately, my eldest brother called me back. From the sounds, he seemed to be in a meeting. Hannah, are you being bullied? I unconsciously acted spoiled. Yes, big brother, Chloe is so annoying, she picks on me every day. My eldest brother soothed me. Don't be scared, I'll protect you. Once I'm done with work, we'll transfer your household registration back home. I reassured my eldest brother. Don't worry, how could I ever let myself be at a disadvantage? After hanging up, 3 million was transferred to my card with the note, pocket money. I smiled brightly, changed clothes, and decided to go shopping. As I went downstairs, I heard lively chatter and laughter from the living room. I saw Chloe obediently snuggled into my adoptive mother. Both were beaming. Hearing the sound, she looked up at me with a provocative gaze. I let out a faint chuckle. Did she think doing that would make me jealous? As I passed the sofa, my adoptive mother saw I seemed to be going out and immediately took out her phone. Hannah, go shopping and don't hold back. I've transferred some money to you. I replied with a yes and successfully saw Chloe's face darken. In her mind, all the money in the house belonged to her, and an outsider like me shouldn't be spending it. Sometimes it was quite amusing, like raising a small toy that could change expressions. She suddenly spoke up, Mom, can I go shopping? I've never been to a shopping mall in a big city before. My adoptive mother immediately felt heartbroken. Thinking this would be Chloe's first time, she said, Of course you can, I'll take you. Then my adoptive mother looked at me and said in an intimate tone, Darling, do you want to pick up the bag you ordered last time today? Let Mom go with you. I understood my adoptive mother was worried I would feel disadvantaged if I saw her only taking Chloe to the mall. No, initially, I didn't intend to agree, but when I saw Chloe's face, full of resentment, out of the corner of my eye, I changed my mind. Okay. When we got in the car, Chloe snatched the seat next to my adoptive mother first. I cast a cold glance, then drove a Maserati directly out of the basement. As I drove past them, seeing Chloe's jealous and regretful expression, I slowly curled my lips into a smile. Narrow-minded. Did she think I would play this boring game with her? How naive. What I'm best at is breaking the rules when I'm not satisfied with them. However, Chloe was quite patient, quickly adjusting her emotions. You're so amazing, big sister, unlike me. This is the first time I've seen such a beautiful car. I put on my sunglasses, languidly saying, If you like it, just look at it a few more times. I waved and then stepped on the gas, driving off first. I waited for them at the mall. My adoptive mother took my hand, her voice gentle. Let's go get your bag first, Hannah. Okay. I happily agreed, holding my adoptive mother's hand as usual. Chloe lagged behind alone, seemingly still annoyed by what had just happened. This time, she wasn't pretending to smile as usual. Her face clearly showed her discomfort. Suddenly, Chloe's angry voice rang out from behind. Mom, he won't let me in. It was then my adoptive mother noticed she was being stopped by the security guard outside. Chloe, why are you lagging behind? My adoptive mother walked over and led her in. She cried, throwing her arms around my adoptive mother. Why did he stop me? Does big sister not want me to come along? I watched her acting with an expressionless face, unable to help but inwardly praise her talent. Do I look like someone who's easily blamed? Could I really take responsibility for something like this? My adoptive mother immediately explained. Chloe, what are you talking about? The guard didn't recognize you, so he wanted you to queue up. Tears streaming down her face, Chloe whimpered. Then why doesn't big sister have to queue? I forced a smile, asterisk rolling my eyes internally. I'm a VIP here, sweetie. I spend at least 3 million a year. I clearly saw Chloe look a little stunned, then an envious look appeared in her eyes. She whined, back in that other house, I only spent 2 yuan all year. My adoptive mother immediately felt heartbroken, hugging Chloe tightly. Chloe, you've suffered so much. It's okay, Mom. I'm just happy to see you again. I leaned to one side, silently commenting, this White Lotus really knows how to fake being well-behaved and foolish. But I cut her off, smiling without smiling. Chloe, you don't need to suffer like that anymore. Your monthly allowance has increased many times over now. Chloe feigned righteousness. Big sister, money isn't the most important thing to me. What makes me happiest is having our whole family together. These words seemed to touch my adoptive mother's heart. She looked at Chloe gently, her face full of emotion and joy. I tilted my head and sighed. A cunning White Lotus villainess encountering a naive, shopping-obsessed protagonist, a perfect match. The sales assistant showed me the bag I had ordered. Chloe stood nearby, pretending to want to touch it but not daring to. This bag probably isn't cheap, is it? Oh, Chloe suddenly looked at me, hesitating. Big sister, actually there are many poor children in the world like I used to be. They don't have enough to eat, enough warm clothes, they're very pitiful. I retorted, so what? She seemed not to expect me to be so blunt. She gently pleaded, "So, could you give up this bag and donate the money to those children?" Before I could even speak, the sales assistant standing nearby stepped forward. She was usually gentle, rarely agitated. "Excuse me, isn't this young lady not our client? This bag is a limited edition. If you give it up, it won't be available anymore. Furthermore, for Miss Shen, this is just a bag." Chloe understood the sales assistant's insinuation. Her face turned bright red. I coldly watched her distressed expression, feeling not a shred of sympathy. I had once read about the lives of children in remote mountain regions. Their living conditions were terrible, and educational resources were severely lacking. If they were girls, they were often married off early. At that time, my adoptive parents were still searching for their biological daughter. After understanding these things, I began to lose sleep at night. I often dreamt of a girl whose face I couldn't clearly see, being beaten and cursed at, treated terribly. She was thin and frail, with a boyish haircut, always hunching her back and bowing her head. I thought of the younger sister I had never met. I was afraid she was also experiencing such circumstances. Therefore, I gave all my pocket money to my eldest brother. I asked him to help me establish a charity fund. I hoped I could contribute a part of my strength to help girls in poor mountain regions grow up. I also hoped that if my younger sister was one of them, even if we couldn't find her, she would have a better life. But Chloe's appearance successfully shattered my illusion. I could accept her as an ordinary person. I was willing to protect her for life, but I couldn't accept a shrewd schemer with calculative eyes. "Big sister, say something?" Chloe feigned helplessness, urging me. I told the sales assistant, "Please pack it up." Chloe looked at me with astonishment, as if I had done something utterly unacceptable. I smiled and asked her, "Do you think I'm too selfish?" Chloe lowered her eyes. "I wouldn't dare, I just thought you had the ability to help them." I suddenly clapped my hands. "You have such a kind heart, I truly admire that." Chloe flinched, staring at me with wide eyes. "Mom, I suggest," I said to my adoptive mother, "if Chloe has such a kind heart, why don't we set up a charity fund in her name? Chloe has just returned, she's still innocent and frugal, and her monthly allowance is only 100,000. Giving her too much pocket money might make her vulnerable to scams. Since she has this compassion, it would be good to follow her intentions, Mom." I slowly sipped my tea, as if to accumulate good karma for her. My adoptive mother was persuaded. Chloe, after just 2 or 3 sentences from my adoptive mother and me, had the decision about how to use her allowance made for her. She was clearly a little flustered. She was about to say something, but feared ruining the noble, fake image she had painstakingly built, so she tried to drag me down with her. "Why don't you set one up too, big sister?" I smiled and said, "I've already established a fund specifically to help poor girls in the mountain regions a long time ago, spending millions every year. If you don't understand anything, just ask me anytime." Chloe's face turned frighteningly pale. "That's more like it. What's the point of being generous with other people's money from a high position? You have to shed a little blood yourself." From that day onwards, Chloe dared not casually pick a fight with me anymore. I was also happy and carefree, paying little attention to her. As long as she didn't cause trouble, I could temporarily tolerate being in the same space as her. But clearly, I had overestimated her. My third brother messaged me, saying he had sent gifts home. He had also ordered 2 bank cards for me, featuring local scenery from his filming location. Each card had 5 million yuan inside. When I went downstairs to collect the gifts, I found Chloe already in the living room. She was happily holding scissors, and the package on the floor was half opened. My face immediately turned cold. It was the first time I'd lost my temper. "Who gave you permission to open that?" Chloe bit her lip. "Why are you so angry, big sister? I just opened your gift." A hint of stubbornness flashed across Chloe's face. "I heard Maid Wang say these were gifts from our cousin for us, not just for you." I glanced at the maid standing nearby, smiling without smiling, which made them bow their heads. "It's true they're for my asterisk cousin, but these gifts aren't for you." "No way," Chloe immediately retorted. "So many gifts, how could none be for me?" I looked at her wary expression, speechless. I played my brother's voice message. "Hannah, my darling, your brother is coming home soon. Gifts will be sent to you as usual. Take whatever you like, okay?" Chloe was instantly deflated, her eyes reddening as she shook her head. "Why, I'm clearly his cousin." I glared at her, not mincing words. "I'm his asterisk biological sister asterisk." Chloe, angry, tried to leave, but I blocked her way. "Stop, give the cards back to me." She remained stubborn. What cards? I looked at her with a sarcastic gaze. 2 cards with a total limit of 10 million. If you don't give them back, I'll call the police. When she heard me mention the card's limit, her eyes clearly lit up. Because I had persuaded my adoptive mother to use most of Chloe's allowance to establish a charity fund, she currently only had $5,000 to $6,000 a month. I'd heard from the familiar sales assistants that whenever Chloe came to Silver Tower to look at bags, she would only try them on but never buy them. Afraid of being looked down upon, she would just buy a silk scarf or a pair of slippers before leaving. But our cousin didn't say these cards were for you, big sister. There are 2 in total, maybe the other one is for me? Chloe insisted stubbornly. I remained silent. How could this person be so thick-skinned? Chloe mistakenly thought I had nothing more to say and became even more smug. Logically speaking, I am his cousin. You only have these things because of me. I gave a faint smile. My brother's money is always only for me. What are **you? Chloe hadn't expected me to insult her. She was stunned for a moment. She seemed to catch sight of something out of the corner of her eye, and tears immediately welled up. What's going on? My adoptive parents, who had just returned from outside, rushed over when they saw the situation. Chloe threw herself into their arms, practically crying herself unconscious. Anyone who didn't know the full story would surely think I had done something terrible to her. Sneered, self-righteous. Opening someone else's gift and then feeling wronged? Chloe, her eyes red and sobbing, said, Mom, our cousin didn't give me any gifts, only big sister. Am I really not loved that much? I completely agreed, nodding bluntly. Yes, that's exactly right. Hannah, your brother really didn't give Chloe any gifts. My adoptive mother was a little surprised. In her impression, my third brother, though a bit headstrong, was always meticulous in his social interactions. I shrugged. He probably found out about her coming home that day. The moment I said that, my adoptive parents' expressions became a little unnatural. My adoptive father, a rigid and blunt man, stated directly, "This is truly what you deserve." Chloe looked at my adoptive father incredulously. My adoptive mother also advised, Chloe, since he was little, your cousin has protected Hannah like the apple of his eye. You had a bit of a conflict with Hannah back then, so it's understandable that he doesn't like you. Standing nearby, I almost burst out laughing at my adoptive parents' bluntness. Chloe's face was as black as freshly dug coal, so dark it looked like slag could fall off. Mom, Chloe said softly and hesitantly, our cousin also sent Big Sister bank cards. I heard Big Sister say there's 10 million in them. Isn't it a bit much for Big Sister to receive so much money? After all, she's not even his cousin. I couldn't help but laugh. What a coincidence, I happen to be his biological sister **. At this moment, my adoptive parents were stunned by Chloe's last sentence. Their usual gentle expressions suddenly changed. My adoptive mother's voice was stern. What nonsense are you talking about? Your sister will forever be a part of our family. My adoptive father was also very serious. Your 3 cousins have loved Hannah since they were children, and they send Hannah pocket money every month. 10 million is nothing. I witnessed with my own eyes Chloe's face contort as if paint had been splashed on it. Astonishment, jealousy, and dissatisfaction mixed together, making her fairly delicate face turn ugly. She pressed her lips together twice, but in the end, dared not provoke my adoptive parents at this moment. I stood nearby, thinking she was truly foolish. No matter what, I had been raised by my adoptive parents since I was little. They had invested a lot of time and money, so the affection between us was naturally very deep. Even if she had a blood relationship, that alone wasn't enough to convince my adoptive parents to let me go. After successfully silencing Chloe, I immediately looked towards the maid standing nearby. Maid Wang has worked here for so many years, she's clearly not up to the task anymore. Go get your severance and go home to enjoy your blessings. The maid, who had been calm, immediately looked up, her eyes showing incredulity. You can't fire me. Why? I tilted my head and asked. Sir, madam? She looked at my adoptive parents for help. My adoptive mother said coldly, if Hannah has fired you, then pack your things quickly and leave. My adoptive father stepped forward, putting an arm around my shoulder. Hannah, don't be angry. It's not worth harming your health over such people. I calmly glanced at the other maids standing nearby. Everyone bowed their heads, not daring to look directly at me. Very good, all intelligent people. The matter resolved, I stayed in the living room alone to count the gifts. My things, even if I don't need them, no one else is allowed to touch. After checking, I carried the gifts back to my room. Just then, I overheard some maids talking about Chloe. Sure enough, someone raised in a poor family just can't make it to the table. Exactly, and she wants to compete with the eldest young miss. I think she's not even worth a strand of Mrs. Hair. I recognized them. Usually, Chloe would call the one on the left older sister, and the one on the right auntie. It seemed she had a very good relationship with them. Chloe suddenly rushed out from a hidden corner, grabbing the two women by their hair. "You despicable wretches, have I treated you badly normally that you dare to speak ill of me like this?" The three quickly lunged at each other, struggling fiercely. Amused, I leaned against a corner not far away, conveniently taking out my phone to record this interesting spectacle. When the farce ended, Chloe alone had left the other two with bloodied heads. She saw me holding my phone, recording her, and immediately panicked. "Big sister, you deliberately set them up to frame me?" I wagged my index finger. "Not quite, no. It's because you're too smart for your own good and it's come back to bite you." Did she think that by being gentle with the maids, they would serve her wholeheartedly? Of course not. Who here wasn't cunning and flattering? Just being gentle and trying to win favor not only diminished the demeanor of the mistress of the house, but also made one easily ridiculed and mocked by others. With good intentions, I told her, "Little sister, don't forget your status. The most important thing for you now is to strive to improve yourself. Why bother trying to please the maids? Shouldn't you really be grasping the existing resources and making up for the skills you should have learned from childhood? You don't need to interfere in my business." For some reason, a deep humiliation appeared on Chloe's face. "What right do you have to look down on others just because you have money?" I was utterly surprised. It was the first time I looked at her seriously. "You really should visit the neurology department. Every heir needs to possess many different skills and qualities. This isn't just about personal development, but also directly concerns the future of the family enterprise." So no matter how pampered I was as a child, I still had to learn what needed to be learned. If Chloe had returned to this home, she couldn't just stick to the mindset of an ordinary person, focusing only on petty gains. Later, she would be the head of the enterprise. Every decision she made could affect the families of employees. Therefore, the burden on her shoulders was immense, and currently she was still very far from reaching that standard. Qualified entrepreneur must formulate strategies with vision and scale. Learning, maintaining rationality, and calmness are the only ways and the mandatory path to elevate one's awareness and skills. "How disappointing," I said. "I once thought that even if you weren't intelligent, at least you had ambition, and ambition isn't a bad thing for us." Chloe looked at me coldly. I continued, "But besides that, you are both vicious and foolish." Chloe's whole body trembled, and she bit her lip tightly. I calmly said, "Little sister, I don't intend to yield to you. Entrusting the company to you would only lead to bankruptcy." "What do you mean?" she shrieked in panicked disbelief. "I am my parents' biological daughter." I shrugged innocently. "So what? I said it long ago. Here, it's the law of the jungle. Concession and weakness might earn you pity, but never respect." That evening, I publicly announced that I would officially join the company. My adoptive father was visibly delighted. "I've mentioned it to you so many times, and this time you finally agreed." My adoptive mother looked sad. "If you go, Mom will be so lonely." "Isn't our little sister still at home with you, Mom?" I deliberately mentioned the only silent person at the table. Chloe was distracted. My adoptive mother, worried, reached out to touch her forehead. "Are you feeling unwell?" She unconsciously dodged, a fleeting look of disgust in her eyes. My adoptive mother saw this, her hand stiffening in place. Chloe quickly composed herself, looking at my adoptive mother with a pitiful expression. "Mom, I didn't mean to." "It's okay. If you're not feeling well, go rest and get better." Chloe stood up and left. My adoptive mother looked distraught. Mom always feels there's something a little strange about Chloe. The way she looks at me isn't like looking at a mother. I asked, "What kind of look?" "Oh, flattery, but with a hint of contempt." I frowned. That sounds quite contradictory. My adoptive father, who hadn't interacted much with Chloe, confidently said, "Perhaps she's just not used to things yet, right?" I secretly made a mental note of this. I quickly found my footing in the company. My adoptive father enjoyed his leisure time, gradually coming to the company less often. Chloe also stopped causing trouble, behaving obediently at home. Occasionally, when she met me, she would even greet me politely. Inside, I felt something was amiss. Based on my understanding of Chloe, she couldn't possibly become so docile just because of my words. But she seemed to have truly accepted her fate, no longer thinking about competing with me, instead living the typical life of a rich young lady, shopping, traveling, and socializing. For now, I hadn't found anything suspicious. Yet, I gently tapped my fingers on the table. What I liked most was a challenge. Chloe's change suggested she still had some intelligence. I started to feel a little interested in her, to see what tactics she would use against me. I guess she would start by acting docile to lower my guard, then team up with friends in her social circle to overthrow me. I secretly prepared my counter-strategies, but then I found Chloe had become too docile. Now, she wasn't even interested in going out anymore, simply content to stay at home. Just as I was about to let down my guard, Maid Liu hurriedly came to find me. "What's wrong?" Seeing her flustered and stammering face, unable to speak clearly, a bad premonition surged in my head. "Eldest young miss, recently I've often seen Miss Chloe coming out of the master's bedroom in the middle of the night." The maid closed her eyes, spilling everything. I almost thought I misheard. My expression immediately turned cold. I warned her, "Maid Liu, do you know what you're saying? Slander can land you in jail." The maid was very cert. At first, I thought I was mistaken too, but then I paid special attention at night. I really saw it many times. I felt a shiver and tried to convince myself not to overthink things, but the maid frowned and said, "Miss Chloe usually goes in at midnight and doesn't come out until 2 or 3 in the morning, and she's always dressed very revealingly." I dropped the pen in my hand, trembling as I called my adoptive mother. "Where are you, Mom?" "I'm on a trip to Miviver." My adoptive mother's cheerful voice rang out, and my heart suddenly went cold. "When did you leave, Mom? Why didn't I know anything?" "Recently, the company had a big project. I often had to work until midnight, so I decided to stay in my apartment near the company, not returning home." "Mom saw you were busy, so she didn't want to bother you," my adoptive mother said. "Chloe asked her friend in the travel industry to arrange everything for me. I'm having a lot of fun, don't worry." My expression was cold. I grabbed my coat and hurriedly walked out. My assistant ran quickly to me, asking anxiously, "Miss Shen, is there anything I can help with?" I looked at my newly hired assistant. She was a very mature and calm girl, extremely capable. I felt very reassured by her. So I said, "I have an urgent matter and need to go home for a bit. You can handle whatever else you feel you can manage on your own." She was slightly stunned, then quickly agreed. Satisfied, I averted my gaze and drove home at the fastest possible speed. Arriving home, I coincidentally met my adoptive father and Chloe, who were preparing to go out. My adoptive father was surprised to see me. "Aren't you supposed to be at the company at this hour? Did you forget some important documents?" "No, Dad." My suspicious gaze swept over my adoptive father and Chloe, probing. "Where are you two going?" My adoptive father patted the backpack on his back. "Chloe and I are going camping." The two of them going camping together. A single man and a single woman in a secluded mountain forest? My heart grew heavier and heavier, and I couldn't help but feel a little nauseous. "Hannah, are you not feeling well?" My adoptive father looked at me worriedly. I carefully observed his expression, seeing nothing unusual. Without concrete evidence, I couldn't jump to conclusions. I tried to stay calm, casually finding an excuse. "I caught a cold recently. I came home early today to rest." "Sick?" My adoptive father frowned. "Have you been overworking lately, causing your immunity to drop?" "Perhaps." I seized the opportunity to say, "Dad, can you stay home with me? I want to eat your meatball soup." My adoptive father, who always indulged me, rarely hesitated. "How about I make it for you after Chloe and I return from camping?" Damn it, it seemed my adoptive father cared a lot about Chloe. I pretended to be willful. "No, you have to stay home with me." Glancing at Chloe, who stood beside him, smiling sweetly, I feigned dissatisfaction. "I plan to come home every day. If I don't, you'll forget about me." "How could Dad ever forget, Hannah?" All right, Dad will stay home." My adoptive father conceded, his expression a little reluctant. I coldly looked at Chloe, gritting my teeth. What on earth did she want? But perhaps my return had made Chloe wary. The maid no longer saw her entering my adoptive father's room in the middle of the night. I had no choice but to restrain my impatience, waiting for her to reveal a flaw. To avoid suspicion, I installed a miniature camera in the second-floor hallway. A week passed, still no progress. On the contrary, my adoptive father had Chloe come to his study every day, and I didn't know what the two of them were doing. I carefully observed my adoptive father's attitude towards Chloe, seeing no signs of them crossing any lines. Chloe behaved very appropriately, usually just making intimate gestures like linking arms with my adoptive father or leaning on his shoulder. The relationship between father and daughter truly seemed normal. The suspicions in my mind gradually dissipated. I tried to convince myself. Perhaps their relationship was just pure father-daughter affection. But another voice in my head sneered. What kind of daughter goes into her father's room in the middle of the night, dressed so revealingly? I found myself in a dilemma. Company work was very important. Sometimes I needed to sign documents in the middle of the night. The villa was too far from the company, making it inconvenient when my subordinates needed to find me. Furthermore, recently, due to family matters, I had to leave early, resulting in a lot of backlog at the company. Therefore, I decided to stay for 2 more days before returning to my apartment. During dinner, my assistant sent me a message asking me to sign a document. I asked the driver to pick her up. As I was signing the document, I suddenly heard a noise from upstairs. Chloe stood on the second-floor balcony, her face flustered and scared, her expression so inappropriate as if she had witnessed an unacceptable sight. I calmly followed her gaze and discovered she was looking towards the assistant beside me. I almost decided immediately, smiling as I called out to her, "Chloe, what's wrong?" Chloe reflexively crouched down on the second-floor landing, pretending to pick something up. I tore the blanket, big sister. You don't need to mind me, I'll clean it up right away. I watched her, clearly trying to hide herself. I felt even more suspicious. I knew my assistant's background very well. She came from a poor background, both her parents had passed away, and she was one of the girls sponsored by my charity fund. I had a deep impression of her because she was one of the few sponsored individuals who passed university entrance exams with excellent results. She was a good talent, serious and diligent, yet also intelligent and quick-witted. Just as I joined the company, needing to build my own team, I chose her as my assistant. I was just curious. Why would an arrogant and vain person like Chloe be afraid of my assistant? It even seemed she was intentionally avoiding being seen by my assistant. Could there be something shady going on? After signing, I patted my assistant's shoulder. "Thank you for your hard work. You can head home now." Watching her get into the car and drive away, I immediately sent someone to investigate the connection between the two of them. Sure enough, something strange was discovered. Chloe's mother used to be my assistant's middle school teacher. But the strange thing was that she hadn't reached retirement age, yet she had already resigned. My gaze unconsciously swept over, suddenly stopping at a photo of Chloe from middle school. Apart from a few facial similarities to her middle school photo, the current Chloe looked very different from the girl in the picture. A thought suddenly flashed in my mind, like a string in my mind being pulled taut. I suddenly remembered my assistant's appearance, realizing with a start that they looked unusually similar. It was just that my assistant always wore black-framed glasses and had a serious expression, while Chloe always liked to smile, so I had never paid attention. Until today, staring intently at the two photos, an absurd hypothesis began to form in my mind. The next morning, as I was leaving, I hugged my adoptive father before I left. While he wasn't paying attention, I secretly took a strand of his hair. Then, I signaled to the maid standing nearby. She had just finished cleaning Chloe's room, and seizing the opportunity while handing me the car keys, she discreetly gave me a strand of hair. After leaving the house, I called my second brother, the hospital director, asking him to schedule a DNA test for me at his hospital. "I'll be there right away." Even if the test was rushed, the results would still take 2 or 3 days. I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened in the past few days, and suddenly I felt panicked. If Chloe and my adoptive father had no blood relation, then her entering his room in the middle of the night, dressed so revealingly, was the act of a woman entering a man's room. If that was truly the case, there could be no other reason than deliberate seduction. If she saw me gradually gaining power in the company, knew she couldn't compete against me, and wanted to take advantage before we could react to seduce my adoptive father, it wasn't impossible. It would be a different path, competing with my adoptive mother. Using a child to contend for family assets would be far more advantageous than using a false identity. Connecting everything together, the answer became clear. Chloe understood me, just as I understood her. If my guess wasn't wrong, if she knew I suspected her, she might act tonight. I immediately told the driver to speed home, hurriedly got out of the car, and ran inside. The study, the tea room, the bedroom, there was no sign of my adoptive father anywhere. I called out to the maid passing by. "Where are my adoptive father and Chloe?" "The master and young miss went out." I panicked. "When did they leave?" "About half an hour ago." I immediately ran downstairs, calling my third brother as I ran. He had acquaintances in the police force and immediately helped me track the location of my adoptive father's and Chloe's car. To save time, I chose the fastest car in the garage. Under my third brother's guidance, I took a detour to intercept them. But I was still one step too late. When I arrived at the hotel, their car had already been parked downstairs for a while. I quickly found the room number, carrying a crowbar, intending to break the door down and storm in. The door suddenly opened. My adoptive father stormed out, his face full of annoyance. "How many times have I told you this kind of love for Dad is a sickness? You need to go to the hospital." When he saw me, he froze in place. "Hannah, why are you here?" Chloe, crying, ran out of the room, clinging to my adoptive father. "Dad, I love you." I stared at my adoptive father, his face alternating between green and white, clearly very flustered. My people arrived, pulling Chloe away from my adoptive father. My adoptive father immediately breathed a sigh of relief, then turned and loudly told the security guards, "Quickly, take this child to the hospital and check if there's something wrong with her mind or psychology." Chloe struggled desperately, but to no avail, crying and screaming in the hallway. My eyebrow twitched. If I didn't stop this in time, someone might misunderstand it as a kidnapping and call the police, causing a lot of trouble. I had the security guard cover her mouth and forcibly drag her away. Sitting in the car, my adoptive father carefully looked at me. "Hannah, when did you find out?" When I mentioned Maid Liu saw Chloe entering his room at midnight, my adoptive father's face immediately darkened. "How did even she know?" I interrupted him. "First, Dad, don't worry about those things. So, what exactly is going on between you and Chloe?" "Your sister and I have nothing going on," my adoptive father quickly said. "Oh no, your sister and I only have a father-daughter relationship." I stared intently at my adoptive father, my face clearly showing suspicion. My adoptive father sighed, explaining the entire situation to me clearly. It turned out that on the night my adoptive mother left, Chloe had snuck into my adoptive father's room at midnight, wearing only a slip dress, which scared my adoptive father half to death. But out of love for his daughter, my adoptive father didn't think much of it and stayed with her all night, reading books. My adoptive father complained, "Your little sister's IQ truly isn't as high as yours. Such a simple book, yet she kept running to me, asking questions endlessly." I rolled my eyes, bluntly pointing out, "That was to attract your attention, to get you to do something else." My adoptive father's face twisted as if he had swallowed a fly. Later, I found her becoming stranger and stranger. She often said she loved me and wanted to be by my side. I added, "She thought you didn't understand romance, so she moved from insinuation to overtness." My adoptive father sighed softly. "Isn't this incest?" he continued. "I suspected that your sister, after being kidnapped, had psychological problems. I thought I shouldn't agitate her but should gradually advise her to change her thinking." I suddenly understood. "So, you often let her into your study at home to tell her these things?" "Yes," my adoptive father said. "But she wouldn't listen no matter how much I talked. I thought the home environment wasn't good, so I planned to take her camping to enjoy nature, thinking maybe she would feel better." I was speechless. My adoptive father was middle-aged, and he loved traveling and appreciating scenery. According to him, nature could broaden the soul. "Are you serious, Dad?" My adoptive father covered his face. "Yes, I thought she had finally understood, but today she tricked me into going camping, then brought me to a hotel. As soon as we entered the room, she started taking off her clothes, which scared me to death." The suspicion in my mind was immediately confirmed. Even without the DNA test results, I could confirm that Chloe was not my adoptive parents' biological daughter. I told my adoptive father my hypothesis. He was furious, gritting his teeth. "So, what did it mean for her to lean on me and hold my hand these past few days?" I looked at him with sympathy. "Consider yourself unlucky, Dad." My adoptive father stood up abruptly. "I'll sue her for harassment," I reminded him. "Then Mom will know Chloe approached you under the guise of her daughter." My adoptive father lowered his voice. "You're right, Hannah, you can't tell your adoptive mother about this." I, of course, wouldn't reveal such a disgusting matter. And naturally, I couldn't let my adoptive mother worry. 2 days later, the DNA test results were in. Sure enough, Chloe was not my adoptive parents' biological daughter, and my assistant, Nicole, was confirmed to be my adoptive father's biological daughter. When I went to meet Nicole, she was calmly organizing documents in her hands, showing no sign of surprise. Curious, I asked, "Why are you so calm?" Nicole smiled. "Perhaps I'm very satisfied with my current life, so I don't have many emotions about the new life that's coming." I thought for a moment. Then, first, I'll promote you and raise your salary. Nicole became the company's general manager, immediately shocking everyone throughout the company. The next day, the company released an announcement revealing her identity. Those who didn't know thought she deliberately started from a subordinate position to understand the company's situation. Nicole came to see me, a puzzled look in her eyes. You've clarified my identity, but what about yours? I closed the document folder, extending my hand towards her. Hello, my cousin. Nicole was stunned. A week later, Aunt Sarah and Uncle David, my birth parents, returned from overseas. My 3 birth brothers also finished their work and came home. The 2 families sat in the living room. The atmosphere was both lively and joyful. Aunt Sarah suddenly said, "Since Nicole is back, why don't we transfer Hannah's household registration back to our house?" The room suddenly fell silent. My adoptive mother replied decisively, "No, it's been so many years. Let's keep it as it is." Aunt Sarah and Uncle David looked at each other, tears immediately falling, crying tragically like pear blossoms soaked in rain. My adoptive parents looked at each other, at a loss for words. My 3 birth brothers, seeing this, also joined in the discussion. Nicole smiled, her gaze gentle as she watched everything unfold. I raised my eyebrow. "What are you so happy about?" She glanced at me and said, "I'm happy for you, big sister. Since I started working, I've been very worried, afraid I would cause you trouble." I was a little puzzled. What trouble for me? I don't understand the ways of the wealthy, but no one is willing to share a portion of their assets with others. I looked at her in surprise. Are you really such a sensible person? Nicole, of course, wasn't this kind of person. Before her background was clarified, she discussed business with me and made no concessions when dealing with those old foxes at work. "I'm only sensible with you, big sister," Nicole said. "If it weren't for your sponsorship, I wouldn't have been able to achieve what I have today." I hugged my knees and smiled, the image of the thin girl with the boyish haircut resurfacing in my mind. I just felt that fate in this world was truly wondrous. I sued Chloe. I demanded she return all the money she had used after impersonating my cousin for unjust gains. The day Nicole and I transferred our household registration was also the day of the court hearing. Nicole and I smiled after hearing the judge read the verdict. After leaving, we encountered Chloe. At that moment, she was being scolded by a middle-aged couple with gray hair. She looked at us with a resentful and malicious gaze, her voice hoarse. "Are you satisfied?" I suppressed a smile and shook my head. "I'll be satisfied when you've paid back all the money. 7 million. Many ordinary people couldn't earn that amount in a lifetime, and Chloe, for the rest of her life, would be imprisoned by that number. Are you Nicole?" The middle-aged woman beside Chloe looked at Nicole with a bewildered expression. Nicole calmly said, "Teacher Will, long time no see." I curiously looked at this middle school teacher, recalling the incident where Chloe had impersonated Nicole. When Nicole was in middle school, she was highly valued by this teacher, so she regarded the teacher as her biological mother. The two had a very close relationship. Later, when the teacher saw a missing person announcement on TV, combined with some things she knew about Nicole, she gradually guessed Nicole's identity. However, she didn't alarm the snake in its hole, but instead grew closer to Nicole, allowing her own daughter, who was the same age, to gradually change her appearance through plastic surgery to resemble Nicole. Then, her daughter proactively sought out my adoptive parents, step by step replacing Nicole's identity. I suddenly remembered that when Chloe first came home, I had asked my adoptive mother why she was so sure it was her daughter. My adoptive mother said she had seen a red mole on Chloe's shoulder. I guess Nicole also had an identical red mole on her shoulder. "Let's go." Nicole's voice brought me back to my senses. After walking for a while, I tilted my head and looked at her. "Still sad?" She smiled, her eyes slightly teary. "I truly used to regard her as my mother." I hugged her, optimistically saying, "Don't overthink it anymore. Mom is waiting at home for you to come back for dinner." She responded seriously, "Yes." A year later, Nicole resigned. The HR department gave me her letter of resignation. I rubbed my forehead. "I should have been the one to leave. Why are you leaving first?" She smiled brightly. "You are a born leader, big sister. Mom and Dad will be more at ease and trusting the company to you than to me." "What about you?" she said. "I want to venture into charity work, helping more girls from poor families." She looked at me very seriously. "Just like you, big sister, I always wanted to be someone like you." I shrugged. "Don't praise me so much. I only did a small part, but for a small blade of grass like you back then, I did enough." I was silent for a moment, then waved my hand. "All right, go do what you want to do." Nicole was an outstanding individual. She had ideals, quick thinking, decisive actions, and momentum as strong as a storm. I knew better than anyone that she would succeed, and reality had proven my judgment to be very good. Nicole became famous. That day, my adoptive mother went to 5 parties, her face stiff from smiling. Netizens rated her quite highly, which made my company's stock rise significantly. I happily called her. "You're like an enlightened one, and we chickens and dogs are ascending to heaven because of you." Nicole replied with a lazy tone. "Does the company really lack this bit of money?" I laughed. "Who complains about having too much? When are you coming back?" "What's wrong?" I frowned. "You left, and now my adoptive mother and Aunt Sarah keep coming to me for intimate hugs and kisses 3 times a month?" Nicole laughed out loud without restraint. She said, "Wait for me, I'll come back and save you." "All right." I had often been delighted that my cousin was living quite well, even beyond what I had hoped for since childhood. She was a resilient and intelligent girl. Although there were some flaws in her life path, having this was still better than having nothing. My adoptive mother called from the window. "Nicole just called and said she's coming home tonight. Your adoptive mother said we should gather there." I smiled and replied, "Yes, yeah,